A pleasant good morning, everyone. My name is Ius. Good morning. My name is Iuse Z. Adams, the Acting Communications Officer within the Office of the Deputy Governor and the Governor's Group. This morning, we're joined at the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force for a press conference to provide updates on recent firearm-related crimes and general progress on various investigations. As we progress this morning, you'll hear from Acting Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Kenrick Davis, who will deliver remarks. Flanked behind me is Acting Deputy Commissioner of Police, Dariel Robinson, Superintendent Selwyn Rock, and Superintendent Lewis Buckley. For the members of the press present, you will be allowed 2 questions in the first instance and 1 follow-up for each of those questions. After all media houses present have had the opportunity to ask questions, you'll be able to ask any further questions that you have this afternoon. As a general reminder, questions should only be pointed to today's point of discussion, which is recent firearm-related crimes and general progress on various investigations. At this time, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Selwyn Rock.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, and I take this opportunity to welcome all of the various media personnel who are here this morning to share with us. This morning's media presentation, as was said earlier, is pertaining to the recent uptick in crime involving the use of firearms within the territory. It is purposed to update and to reassure the public as it pertains to the ongoing investigations surrounding that uptick. At this point in time, I would like to introduce Deputy Commissioner Kenrick Davis to give his remarks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media, ladies and gentlemen in the listening audience online. On behalf of the senior leadership team of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, Acting Commissioner Jacqueline Vanterpool, who is away on duty, I would like to offer this update on recent gun-related offenses which have occurred in the territory. And after which, of course, we'll entertain your questions in the form indicated earlier. We know that violent crimes, particularly gun crimes, is a real concern in our territory. And there is a clear indication across all the communities that we need to work together to resolve these gun-related matters. I think we should all agree that the Virgin Islands is a low-crime jurisdiction, and that is a well-earned reputation. It is indeed a safe place to live, to work, and to visit. That said, a small segment of our population has deviated from this shared law-abiding norm and have conducted themselves in ways that promote violence, particularly gun violence. Whereas we have seen some steep declines in some key categories of crime, such as sexual offenses, non-dwelling burglaries, and serious assaults, we have also unfortunately seen a steep rise in some other concerning areas, in this case, gun-related crimes. In the period January to April of 2024, that's last year, we had 6 robberies. 3 of these were gun-related. But in the same period this year, we have seen 19 robberies, 17 of which involved the use of firearms. This means that robberies have increased by 14 incidents. And that is for January to April of the respective years. A key feature of these gun-related robberies is that offenders appear to be targeting bars, pubs, and other similar locations which deal with cash. And of course, their interests seem to be around cash and jewelry worn by patrons. Quite notably, we have had a number of shooting and shot-fired incidents across the territory, mainly on Tortola, and it is unfortunate that 2 of these incidents resulted in the death of 2 of our residents. The first one occurred on the 15th of January 2025, in which Quinton Noel of Purcell Estate was killed. And just last Saturday, the second incident occurred. That's on the 10th of May, where Naron Erison of West End was gunned down in a hail of bullets. Most of the firearm incidents which have occurred involve individuals who are involved in organized criminal activities. They do not involve, as we would characterize it, law-abiding citizens. So it involves persons who are involved in crime. But there is still a chance that some of us, certainly the victims of these various robberies, could become unwitting victims of these firearm-related incidents. Earlier in the year, after we recognized that there was this upward trajectory, we augmented our measures to mitigate them. We are thankful to the members of the public who engage with us to the extent that we have been able to see some result. As a result of what we did over the last several weeks since January, we were able to recover 9 firearms. This is 1 more than we recovered in the same period last year. And we were also able to recover 397 rounds of ammunition, which is 194 more ammunition than we recovered last year. Our increased presence, especially at nights, have been effective to reduce some of these crimes, including firearm crimes. For instance, just a few weeks ago in the banking district, our proactive patrol thwarted a robbery and recovered a firearm along with 6 rounds of ammunition. And of course, earlier in the year, we recovered about 200 rounds of ammunition during a routine stop and check in the Kindergarten Bay area. In connection with these recoveries, we've arrested and charged several individuals, and some of them are currently before the court awaiting trial. We have ensured in all cases that our victims were given the requisite support and updates so that they are able to keep abreast of the various matters before the court. I think it is clear to everyone within the sound of my voice, here in this room and online, that whereas gun crime has always been a long-standing concern, the recent sharp increases has garnered our collective attentions and therefore require our collective action. And that is for both police and the public alike. We are committed as the RVIPF to doing all we can, all that is within our powers and resources to rectify these matters and to reduce crime, gun crime in our communities. The support of the public is very important in this. There is a sort of fierce urgency of now, which demands that together we pause, reflect, and consider how we could rectify this problem. Indeed, we are at a critical inflection point where we as a society, police, public, and I might add the media, need to work together to rectify this problem. So we as senior leaders, we consulted with Acting Commissioner Vanterpool, and we agreed on a strategic command structure to respond to the current situation, that is the current uptick in gun crimes. We have implemented measures that together we believe will advance the current investigations and also reduce further incidents in the future. All the commanders standing here behind me and those who are currently in the field doing actions around these investigations have taken on key responsibility to ensure that as a force we can bring success to these measures. In addition to what we've done internally within the RVIPF, we have established partnerships with other law enforcement agencies locally, and these include the Financial Investigation Agency, His Majesty's Customs, Department of Immigration, His Majesty's Prison Service, and of course, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. Within this construct that we've operationalized, we've also established a joint intelligence working cell that consists of all of these local partners as well as international and regional partners. Because of what we've done as a direct result of this, we can report some progress in some of these firearm-related matters which occurred within the last week. We conducted several overt and covert intelligence-led investigations around several individuals suspected to be involved in firearm-related incidents in the territory. So far, we've recovered 40 kilograms of cocaine with a street value of $4 million. We've recovered over $20,000 in bulk cash. We've traced, identified, and recovered several bits of evidence, which I cannot name at this stage in relation to several of these investigations. And we have arrested a number of individuals who remain in custody as we speak. We have traced, identified, and made public the identity of one suspect in one of the murders. And I will pause here to explain that yesterday, because of some concern around vigilante justice, potential vigilante justice, we did not overnight name who that person was, as in which murder the person was connected with, I should say. But today I'm prepared to say that, because we met today, we had additional information which changed the situation on the ground, and as such we're now in a position to say that this wanted suspect, about whom we promulgated a bulletin yesterday, is wanted in relation to the murder of Nyron Erickson, which occurred last Saturday, 10th of May 2025. You would have seen the bulletin. I'm sure it's available to you, but just to repeat here that we are engendering, please, we are pleading for the help of the public to assist us to get this person into custody. We believe that aside from the fact that he's of interest to the investigation, he poses an ongoing threat to public safety, which affects us standing at this podium, yourselves in the audience, as well as persons listening online. So we want to arrest John Emmanuel, who prior had another identity, Brent Danglade, and he goes by the street name Small Brent. He's from Trinidad and Tobago, and he is currently in the territory insofar as we've been able to determine. In addition to the measures I outlined before, we've also repurposed various elements of our resources, and we've assigned additional staff towards this violence reduction initiative. Some of the investigations, particularly murders, are at very dynamic stages, and there is a sense in which we would be irresponsible to share too much information. That could have the unwitting effect of putting those investigations into jeopardy. We have given a summary of what we've done as partners, with our partners, RVIPF, local law enforcement, regional partners. As I indicated earlier, the solution to this current gun-related crime situation will involve persons outside the police. It can't be the police alone. We are committed to doing everything we can to rectify this matter. But we are also inviting the public to work with us so that we can have quicker results and that the results can be more readily seen than if it were that we work alone. So the assistance of the public is critical in this. Every single bit of information, ladies and gentlemen, is important. Every single bit. It might look insignificant. It might look as though it means nothing in the big scheme of things, but that could be the one morsel which makes the difference in what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm inviting members of the public to make contact with us through the numbers which have been previously promulgated, but I will repeat them here, given how important this is. You could call our intelligence unit at 284-368-9339, Crime Stoppers, anonymously. You would have to give your identity at 800-8477-TIPS, or on the overseas number 284-800-8477 rather. On behalf of Acting Commissioner Vanterpool, the senior leadership team, some of whom are represented here with me, the men and women of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, and I might also say our partners locally and internationally. I want to give you the assurance that we will do everything within our resources and powers to reduce gun-related crime in the society. That said, there is no way we can do it alone. We all have a vested interest to work together to ensure that we can reduce these incidents in our community. And I will end with an appeal to say, reach out to us. If you hear something, say something. If you see something, say something, because that could be the one bit that we're waiting on to solve some of these serious matters. I thank you very much for your kind attentiveness.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. We'll now move to our question and answer segment. As a reminder for our media houses present, please be sure to identify yourself and the media house you represent prior to asking your questions.
Good morning, Catherine Richards at JTV News. And first, I must applaud the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force for this initiative of coming to the people via the media to address these issues. My very first question, you will have alluded to the wanted bulletin that was put out just yesterday. Curious minds want to know, having done our own research, we realized that the name, one of the names of the person is called, has been wanted in Trinidad, his hometown, from 2006. Do we have the mechanism to determine a person's credibility, or whatever you call it, before they are allowed in our territory? That's part one of the question. And if that is the case, can you confirm whether or not this person had entered the territory via legal means?
Thanks for the question, and it is indeed a relevant one to what we're discussing. Some of the information around Mr. Emmanuel was not known to us until after we triggered the measures that we mentioned earlier. I am not able to attest to the situation in his home country about whether he's wanted, but suffice it to say that we're still exploring several lines of inquiry to determine exactly how he came into the territory. That said, you would have seen from the bulletin that he has two different identities, and we've been able to determine that both identities are current in the sense that he has current identification / travel documents with two different names on which he could use to travel. So I will commit to providing a further update as to how he came into the territory, but standing here today, I'm unable to say definitively how.
A follow-up to that very question. Can you say if the photo that you have out for the wanted person is a current one?
Okay, so here's the thing, and great question again. We took the decision to send this to the public very quickly. For one, we're looking at an investigation, but also there is a prevailing threat, we believe, to the community. So when we sent out what we had then, it was a calculated measure to ensure that the public is not exposed, and that as RVIPF we're doing everything to preserve life, preserve the peace. Since that has occurred, we've had more photographs, more information, and our press officer has been attending to that to send those out to the public. For instance, you will receive shortly, I'm sure, photographs showing tattoos on his skin, also some defining and outstanding features about his heirs and so on, which could be of help to the public in helping us to get this person into custody. Because that is the goal here. We want to ensure that the public engages with us and assists us to have him arrested.
Thank you for that. My second question. In your opening statement, you correct me if I did not get it correct. Did you say that the two persons whose lives were taken via gun violence for this year so far are persons who were involved in criminal activities? That's what you said?
Yes, that is affirmative.
Could you highlight us to those criminal activities?
So I think it is public knowledge that in terms of Mr. Erickson, he was before the court for criminal matters. He had been charged for upwards of 21 offenses. And based on the information available to us, he was a person of interest to the police for a criminal matter. So it is safe to say, yes, he was involved. And I could enlarge the discussion to say around Mr. Noel himself, there were some issues about involvement in organized crime. I did say that most of the persons to whom this violence is directed are persons who are involved. But there is an extended risk for persons who may fall prey to robbery. And it is something that should engender our interest so that we try to reduce things, because even though we're not involved, most of us, we could end up wrong place, wrong time, and become a target unwittingly of these activities. So I want to make it clear that the persons involved in criminal activities are the persons who are more readily exposed to crime, gun crime. But all of us as a society, of course, are exposed. And I just want to add one thing to that. There's a thing called vicarious trauma, which is expressed in some ways in terms of the fear of crime. We are not involved, but because of the reporting of crime, our perception of crime, we become traumatized because of that crime. So even though we're not directly involved, we could become affected. And that should propel most of us to want to be a part of the solution. If our neighbor is affected, we should be concerned because we could be affected just as much as our neighbor is. So I'm again appealing to the public, to those of us members of the media sitting here, those of you members of the media rather, to coordinate with us, cooperate with us, assist us in this, what I would call a righteous effort to bring this perpetrator to justice, but more generally to reduce violent crime in our community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Morning, Zan Lewis, Zadimbe Radio. So you're saying you don't know how the guy came into the territory? The guy who you're looking for, you're not aware or you don't know?
Okay, so thanks for the question. So let me clarify, and I will preface, Zan, thanks for the question. You're always very on point, I must say, right? This is an active investigation, and I'll answer you, I'm not evading, right? And we made a judgment that it was important to put out certain things very early because we have a duty to prevent residual violence apart from what has occurred already. As we speak, there are officers in the field trying to answer this very question that you have preferred to me. If I were to give you an answer, yes, I have some ideas, but I would be irresponsible to say what it is before they are properly verified. But you have a commitment that we'll provide that update as soon as we verify that.
So it's possible he could have come to the airport?
It is possible.
If persons come to the airport and they look suspicious, there is data to check on individuals coming through. Because for you in your the bulletin to put out, say that he's an assassin, he's a kidnapper, to outline all of those, where those information came up from. And persons coming through, do you have the ability to vet these persons first before they come into the territory?
Okay, so as we said before, we've established a joint intelligence cell which consists of local law enforcement who work at the airport as well, that's immigration, customs, and also other partners elsewhere. And very frequently, not just with this incident, we do get information from these partners about suspicious travelers. And we have collaboratively worked on that to prevent issues. It must be understood within the context of what's happening here that when you're investigating a crime, you're starting from a position where the crime has already occurred, where people have traveled, and there was no suspicion per se about them before the crime occurred. So you're basically trying to piece together something which happened in the past and the circumstances on the ground have changed. So I think that in short order, given the progress that we've made in 1 week, less than a week, we'll be able to know exactly what occurred, how it occurred, and most importantly, who were involved in facilitating or making it possible.
Mr. Davis, you have anybody in custody in relation to the recent murder?
I am unable to give any details on that.
But when you say you're unable, you have persons and you can't talk about it, or you can't tell us if you have?
No, I can say what I'm permitted to say, given the responsibility that I have to ensure the integrity of the various investigations, to say that we have arrested persons. I cannot say in respect of what investigation. That will shortly be revealed when we have verified certain facts. But it would be irresponsible for me to say which of the investigations we have persons in custody.
As a follow-up, how many persons do you have in custody for this last one?
I think it's about 3.
Last one?
Yes.
Right. When Erickson was shot, are you in any position, 3 persons in custody, are you in any position to say at this time, not that if you are in it, you must be in a position to say that if he was in a position at the time he was shot to defend himself, 1, and also how many shots he received, and if it was from 1 gun.
It would be, thanks for the question, and I understand the genuine interest around it. It would be most irresponsible for me to give that information out at this time. You would like to hear it, but you would immediately lose respect for us if we were to tell you that. It's too early to give those details, given how the fact that the investigation is in its infancy. But we will provide those details in due course.
Cindy Roseanne, Robert Media. Good morning.
Sure.
What could the police have done that they haven't done as yet to help us avoid being in the space we find ourselves in now? Okay. For example, any border patrol systems that could have gone in that we just did not take advantage of?
So that's a great question, because it allows me to confirm that as a police force, we're always willing to shine the spotlight at ourselves. We routinely examine our practices, our patrols, and we ensure that we are responding in a context that relates to the information on the ground. So our patrols, for instance, are generally revolve around hotspots where the crimes are occurring, because it makes sense given that we don't have sufficient numbers of police officers to put 1 person at each person's gate to focus on the areas where crimes are occurring. So it is a continuous process where we look at what we do, we critique, and we see how best to improve it. We also look for feedback from the public in terms of what they think we're doing, what we're not doing very well, and we take those seriously into consideration when we reform our systems and our procedures. So I will not stand here to tell you that we've been perfect, because we have not been, but we're always willing to accept questions like the one you've asked, and also to include that in the way we make changes to what we do and how we do it.
Thank you, but what about our borders? There is clearly no control anywhere. Is there anything else that we can do?
Well,
any work that we can do with, say, the phone companies, any of those sets of electronic border control systems that we can put in place? Is it a financial issue?
Well, some of this, you're asking about financial issues and so on, I would not be able to speak to, but I'd say I would suggest to you that a fair bit is going on around the borders. I'm not going to say it's necessarily perfect, and in the spirit of what I said earlier, it is something that we're willing to look at. We find ourselves in a position as law enforcement officers where it is difficult to prove negatives, in the sense that we can't prove what we've prevented because it never happened. So a fair bit of work from police, marine, from the customs, from immigration have gone on to prevent things, but you don't know what you're preventing because it never happened. So I think a fair bit of work is going on, but of course there's always room for improvement, and it is something that we're willing to look at and shine the spotlight ourselves, as I said before.
Thank you. Zan took one of my questions, so just to follow up to Zan's question. Given the description of the man in the wanted flyer, are lives at stake based on any of the persons you now hold in custody?
I am not able to speak to that. I do not know of any specific threat or risk posed to any person. The decisions that we have made, the information that we've published, were done strategically to ensure that we do not add to that in a negative direction. which is one of the reasons I have not been able to say or to answer some of the questions that you want answered. But suffice it to say that we are not aware of any specific information that would point to any specific risks or threat to any person in the community at this time. But,
so there is
yes.
a heightened risk that the society should be extra aware of,
Yes.
based on any of the persons that you have in custody.
No, I can't
in
speak to
relation
that.
the person that is on the wanted fire.
No, I would say no to that question. But what I would say, the risks surround the person that we've published, and we believe that he is a clear and present risk to the community, and therefore, as police citizens, we need to do all we can together to get him arrested. That is the risk that I would want to galvanize our attentions toward, instead of thinking about ones that we can't prove. So that is the one that we really need synergies around to get into custody. Yes.
High-profile criminal activities such as this, anywhere around the world, is hard to do without some compromise inside of certain agencies. Have you identified some roles within the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force?
To answer your question, I would say no, we have not identified any moles in any law enforcement agency. None at all. I'm answering the specific question that you asked, and I'll take whatever follow-up you have, but you don't just allow me space to answer it. As a police force standing here, I think we have a record that we are always willing to look at ourselves. And in that regard, I think we stand heads and shoulders above every other organization in this country, because this is the only organization who has shown a willingness to investigate its own, make arrests, suspend, imprison by ourselves. I'll go further. I'll just make this point. It's important. If I come to your house and see you sweeping, it says that there was some dirt, but you're taking care of it. It's quite another matter if I come to your house and have to pull that broom. That would be shame on you. The RVIPF has always been willing to draw its own broom and sweep its own house. No one else in this society can lay claim to that reality. No one else.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Rush going to be at Beacon. Much appreciated. So regarding Saturday's death of the late Mr. Erickson, is RVIPF expecting any reprisals, as in retaliatory acts of violence? And if so, what are you doing to prepare for that possible eventuality?
Okay, so thanks for the question. I cannot speak to any known intelligence or information about reprisals. What we are preparing for is any sort of gun violence, any sort, be it reprisal, be it otherwise. We are about ensuring that we're doing all we can, working with the community to reduce the chance of any residual gun violence from that matter, or any other form of violence from any other fire matters that we're investigating.
As a follow-up to that, can you speak to any of Holbrook's known connections, groups that he would be associated with?
For the same reason I said earlier, because of the infancy of this investigation, yes, we've made progress, but it would be irresponsible for me to delve into that sort of answer with you. But you have our commitment that on a subsequent occasion, we've called a press conference here, so we're not averse to the idea of being open about these things. But it would be immature, it would be irresponsible for me to speak on that at this stage. Yes.
Do I get a second question?
Yes.
So as a territory made up of a lot of little islands, and when someone is a flight risk like this, what are the measures being taken to lock down our borders as far as the ocean goes? As far as, I mean, even taking a dinghy to St. Croix,
Okay.
what's being done?
So thanks for the question. A number of things, and you would have seen some of it in the publication we made yesterday, where we've said to the public, take the keys out of your cars, lock your doors, secure your small seagoing vessels. And that was done deliberately to reduce the chance that those properties, those modes of transportation could be used to facilitate what you just described. Aside from that, we did say earlier that we've taken a stakeholder approach to this, where this is not just the RVIPF responding to this issue. We've engaged the synergies from all the other law enforcement agencies present in the BVI and also regional partners in the USVI, the National Crime Agency from the UK, who has regional presence as well. In fact, everybody. The Marine Police, Superintendent Buckley, who's here, is in charge of the Marine Police. He's engaged that. We've repurposed some of our staff who would not ordinarily work in some departments to ensure that the vulnerabilities that you point to could be mitigated. So there's a fair bit going on. Can we do more? We're always thinking about that. In every meeting that we've had, we've thought of that. And just to say that every day, including today when we're finished here, we have a meeting to ask the same questions of ourselves that you just asked, to see what more could we do, who are the additional stakeholders that we could pull on board to get this done.
Brief follow-up. You said that regional stakeholders were contacted, authorities in the region. Does that involve U.S. Customs and Border Patrol and a Marine unit?
Yes, indeed.
I assume they've been notified. Has your organization spoken with them?
Yes, indeed we have. We have.
Yeah. That's all for me. Thank you.
Good morning, Jacka Wooding, 284 Media. Now, you mentioned that the suspect currently wanted is from Trinidad and Tobago, and by browsing on social media, I think the average citizen would notice there's been particular uproar from persons in Trinidad and Tobago surrounding Erickson's death. Has there been any special effort to possibly collaborate with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in this investigation and possibly to get any information on the network that the suspect may be benefiting from?
Right, that's a great question, and the short answer is yes, yes, and yes. I said before that our acting commissioner is in Guyana at the moment attending a conference where also senior members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Force are present. She's been in a direct consultation with them, as have myself, as the person standing in the gap for the moment. I've been speaking with them as well, along with almost every other chief of police in the region to engage their support. We've also engaged assistance from another entity called the Regional Security System, RSS, which is based in Barbados. They have regional reach. So yes, all of that is going on. There is daily communication and also sharing of information back and forth, reciprocal sharing of information. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Premier Dr. the Honorable Natalia Wheatley recently mentioned that there has been cooperation in this investigation. Given the nature of the matter, are efforts being heightened to protect those who may come forward with information? And what assurance can the RVIPF provide to possible witnesses or anybody with information that they will be sufficiently protected should they come forward, particularly given the nature of the situation?
So I understand, great question. I understand that you're speaking to one incident, but I just want to redirect our attention to the fact that there are other incidents as well. So we have a template by which we work. Yes, circumstances and the peculiarities of a particular case will dictate certain realities. But at the same time, we ensure it's one of our the rules we work by to do no harm. And therefore, sources of information have always been given great priority because it becomes a trust issue, a trust and confidence issue, and we ensure that our sources are always protected. We have systems in place, some of which I am not allowed to speak of, to ensure that information is secured. I did say before that persons wanting to give information could also do so anonymously via the Crime Stoppers line, or to call somebody anonymously, a police officer, or to speak with someone just to pass the information on. So there are ways to pass information to the police, to law enforcement, without ever revealing your identity. And I would encourage anyone who has the concerns that you express in your question to do so. It's better to pass the information anonymously than to not help at all, because this needs a concerted effort from everyone in Virgin Islands. And I'll say this, if our partners who don't live here see it fit to help, shouldn't we all see it fit, the fact that we live here, to help? We should not expect someone from somewhere else to help us to fix our roofs when we are doing nothing to fix our own roof.
Mr. Davis, I have two follow-up, if I may be permitted. The first one, can you confirm whether or not a weapon was found on the scene of the most recent murder, whether it be on or off the victim?
Okay, so again, for the reasons I articulated earlier, I am unable to responsibly give any information, any specific information about that matter because of how infant the investigation is. But if you were to ask us that again in a few weeks, perhaps the situation might allow me to be more generous.
Okay, my second, can you say whether or not persons who were taken into custody relating any of... No, you cannot answer that one. Just sorry about that one. But I want to go back to another one. Can you say whether or not the person who has been held in St. Thomas for the murder of Jaime Stout, to what extent this extradition process is, if there is going to be an extradition?
Just to say, it's an ongoing process. I'm not able to give you a current update on it, but I would want to just indicate that, yes, I understand the interest. You will be updated on that in the future, but this is about the other matters that we are dealing with about the gun.
But you said general, we're
Yes.
talking about the crimes generally, the gun crimes generally, and whether it be yesterday or 5 years ago is very important to the suffering families.
All right, I appreciate that and I agree. So just to say that the matter surrounding the return of Mr. Stout's killer to the jurisdiction is an ongoing process. We're in collaboration with the DPP, the AG's office, who has remit for extradition, to see that it is done. But I'm unable to say what stage is that. But it's an active process that's continuing as we speak.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Davis, you're begging the people for assistance. You are asking very nicely for assistance from the public in solving your crimes. The crime scene. The people need to know information from the police, where there are certain things you can say. Those are some of the questions we are asking, even though they may be kind of confidential, right? The people need information, right? And if you are looking for the assistance of the people, you have to give, because one of the main reasons why I believe you call this press conference is a result of the bulletin. The police have been criticized and continue to be criticized. It's known that Erickson is no saint. You have explained that the accusations that have been made against him. Why is it so appropriate at this time to call a press conference to inform the territory about that matter? I believe that was the main matter, to inform the territory about that matter. And the acting commissioner of police is out of the state. What is the urgency in this matter in the interest of the police force?
Okay, that's a great question. So this is not about one incident, as we said before. It is about several firearm incidents. And by my count, 19 robberies, 2 homicides, which resulted from firearms. So it's not about one incident. This is about balancing the needs of an investigation with the murder you talk about, the other investigation, but also a need to ensure that there is no residual risk to the public. That's the main reason we're here today, and not next week when Ms. Vanderpool returned. And just to say that she was consulted about this, and this is occurring based on a directive she gave to have it today, because she shares that concern about the residual risk. By having someone, based on the information they received, who is a known killer loose in our community, I think it would be most irresponsible irresponsible, negligent, perhaps, if we were to have waited until the acting commissioner returns next week to have a press conference. We have a duty to discharge to the community, not only to do the investigations, but to ensure, to the extent that we can, and to use all the resources we have to make sure that no harm comes to any member of the public by having someone in our community who has the proclivities we're known, that the young man is known to possess. So it is about ensuring no ongoing risk to the community as opposed to further investigation. It's a balance, it's a delicate balance. And as police officers, we have a duty to ensure that both are done with expedition.
Would it be correct to assume, sir, that this recent murder is of particular interest to the police force in light of the many criticisms to show that the police is capable of doing this job, particularly in the absence of the acting police commissioner? Is there a message you as acting deputy police commissioner want to put in these special quarters for them to hear?
So here's the thing.
And could I say lastly, before we go, the reason why I'm asking that question, sir, in other jurisdictions, which I won't name, if there's a person that has had over the past several run-ins with the law, which is evident, some jurisdictions or some police officers will say, that's one less. That is one person that we do not have to worry about at this point. Why is it that it seems as though there is this particular interest at a time when, particularly when the law enforcement report is out and other criticisms are against the force?
So here's the thing. I think I answered the last part of your question already. I disagree most profusely with the premise. We have one way to investigate when a murder happens, any murder, regardless of the characteristics of the victim. We approach it with the same vim, vigor, and vitality, regardless of the victim. We have a constitutional duty to preserve life, all life, and that is something that we take very seriously. I almost forgot the first part of the question, but I'll paraphrase here. I think one of the hallmarks of leadership is how things function when you're not around. It says that you have put things in place to ensure continuity, and that service to the community is provided, which is why at every stage we've consulted with the acting commissioner. She's instructed us to do this. So there is no other reason. We're here because we are following instructions, as all officers who serve below the commissioner of police has a duty to do. She began her travels before the incident to which you referred, and she could not have made any changes to her travel. She was already en route before the incident. So I think as responsible command team, we should continue with our instructions in our absence. And it's also a good reflection on leadership, if it is that your team can function while you're away.
Last question, sir. The three persons you have in custody in relation to that incident, would it be correct to assume that the possibility of them being charged depends on if you catch that person, which is the Trinidadian who is on the run? Because I believe you can hold them for a certain time before releasing them.
So here's the thing. Thanks for the question, but I must say that the premise of your question is incorrect. At no point did we say that the three persons in custody are in custody in relation to the particular matter that you referenced. They are in custody in relation to various investigations. And of course, by later today, you will see some of that in the press, I'm sure, when charges are preferred. So the premise is wrong, and therefore any answer I give to the specific premise will also be incorrect. So I disagree with you. We're here to talk about general gun crimes, respectfully, not one gun crime, regardless of the characteristics of the particular victim. We investigate one way, and we balance investigative needs with the needs to protect the rest of the community from somebody who is known to have violent proclivities. And that is a job we're trying to discharge with balance.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon again, or morning there. Like my colleague, I'm confused slightly at the different information that we're being answered with versus what's being withheld. And it's publicly to protect the citizenry, protect people's lives. I'm wondering how is that safety prioritized in which information you all are choosing to release? What's the process for that?
Okay, so we meet every day, and we're meeting after this meeting, and the meeting is to decide. For instance, we have an obligation to update victims, which we do. We decide when for instance, every victim in all of the cases that we're talking about today, all the 19 robberies, we're told that we'll be having a press conference to talk about these issues, just in case it surprises them when they're re-traumatized by virtue of it. We decide about balancing investigative integrity versus informing the public. And there was a sense in which we thought at one point that telling the public about Mr. Emmanuel would be premature, but that was trumped by the need to inform the public to prevent victimization further, to prevent residual violence. So it is a delicate balance, but it is something that we ensure that we can discharge because we have to do both, not one or the other. So it is something that we take very seriously. We critique each other. We welcome the feedback from yourselves, from members of the public generally, and we take that into consideration. But there are things we can say, can't say, and there are things we can't say until a particular time. You would love me if I tell you more, but you would lose respect for me immediately. And I prefer for you to respect me than to love me.
I agree with you, first of all.
Yes.
But forgive me for pressing the point further on my last question, or question before last concerning possible connections. Can you, just as a point of example, explain how that would be endangering the public rather than assisting the public in assisting you, the police, to deny us from knowing any connections that he has?
So here's the thing. I'll use another example, and this, I'm afraid, will be our last
Sorry,
answer.
she's asked for
She's asked for. Okay, so I'll just say this. Recently, we promulgated some information that we were in search of a particular motor car. And that was, again, the same matrix was at play, balancing investigative integrity versus appealing to the public, informing the public. That car was set alight on the beach in Brewers Bay. We lost the opportunity. The investigation was heard, the public was informed. So it's a delicate thing that we must assess every day, at every step. And there must be balance. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. Again, I'll end. You didn't ask it, but I must reiterate. We need the assistance of the public to work with us so that we can get the results that we're all desirous of getting in the quickest possible time.
Thank you. Before and even now, after Erickson's death, there is this conversation about organized crime between the BVI, USDA, and Anguilla. Can you talk to us about that? Like, if that's a real thing, what you guys are doing about it? If you could just talk to us about it briefly.
Well, I won't be able to reference anything specific out of my need to stay away from any specific investigation, but just to say that the BVI does not exist in isolation. Borders are mostly for law-abiding citizens. Criminals do not see borders. And therefore, there is a need to work with other jurisdictions, and this is something that we do very well, and I think it has been effective, including in the current situation that we're discussing around gun crimes in the community. So it is something that we'll continue to do, but I'm unable to speak about any specific organized crime group or any specific incident.
I just want to make a suggestion, and I know that you, Acting Commissioner Davis, I know you guys do all that you have to do in terms of training your police, but I just want to identify that on Saturday, and I'm going to say this publicly, there were officers, I'm not going to identify them, that displayed unsatisfactory behavior at the announcement of the violent act of Mr. Erickson. So maybe police officers could be aware of themselves all the time, especially if they're in public, because that did not look good and it wasn't taken well.
Thanks for that. I'm not aware of the specific situation you're referring to, but we'll look into it. We do have a professional standards department, which is headed by DCP Robinson, so it's something we look into. But I welcome it. We do value this kind of feedback so that we can look at ourselves as we have a practice of doing. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your presence here. Again, the RVIPF, I thank you on behalf of the Acting Commissioner of Police, senior ranks, and all staff of the RVIPF for attending, and give your commitment that we will continue to vigorously investigate these matters and provide the duty that we swore to do to keep the BVI as safe as we can. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to express gratitude to Acting Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Kenrick Davis, Acting Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Dariel Robinson, Superintendent Selma Rock, and Acting Superintendent Louis Buckley. On behalf of the government of the Virgin Islands and the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, I'd like to thank the members of the media who have joined us today, and those of you who are watching us online or via radio. Thank you for joining us, and do enjoy the remainder of your day.